Biblical and Talmudic units of measurement were used primarily by ancient Israelites and appear frequently within the Hebrew Bible as well as in later Judaic scripture, such as the Mishnah and Talmud. These units of measurement are still an important part of Jewish life today. There is much debate within Judaism, as well as by outside scholars, about the exact relationship between measurements in a system and those in other measurement systems, such as the English unit system used in the United States of America. Classical statements, such as that an ETZBA was 7 barley corns laid side by side, or that a log was equal to 6 medium-sized eggs, are so indefinite and vague as to be nearly useless. Nevertheless, the entire system of measurement corresponds almost exactly with the Babylonian system. It may therefore be assumed that the relationship between the Israelite measurements and contemporary units is the same as the relationship between the Babylonian system and contemporary units. Note: the listed measurements of this system range from the lowest to highest acceptable halachic value, in terms of conversion to either English or SI units. Length and distance. The original measures of length were clearly derived from the human body, the finger, hand, arm, span, foot, and pace, but since these measures differ between individuals, they are reduced to a certain standard for general use. The Israelite system thus used divisions of the finger breadth, palm, span, el, mile, and parza, the latter two are loanwords into the Hebrew language, and borrowed measurements, the Latin mil, and Iranian parasang, respectively. Both were units of itinerant distance, and thus varied according to terrain and stride length, and, in the case of the parasang, also on the speed of travel. The Israelite measurements were related as follows. 1 palm equals 4 finger breadths, 1 span equals 3 palms, 1 el equals 2 spans, 1 mil equals 2000 els, 1 parasang equals 4 mils. Discrepancies of el. The biblical el is closely related to the cubit, but two different factors are given in the Bible. Ezekiel's measurements imply that the el was equal to 1 cubit plus 1 palm, while elsewhere in the Bible, the el is equated with 1 cubit exactly. Ezekiel's el, by which he gave measurements in his guided vision through a future Jerusalem temple, is thus 1/6 larger than the standard el, for which an explanation seems to be suggested by the Book of Chronicles. The chronicler writes that Solomon's temple was built according to cubits, following the first measure, suggesting that over the course of time the original el was supplanted by a smaller one. The Egyptians also used two different els, one of which, the royal el, was a sixth larger than the common el. This royal measurement was the earlier of the two in Egyptian use, and the one which the pyramids of the 3rd and 4th dynasties seem to be measured in integer multiples of. The smaller of the Egyptian els measured 17.72 in, but the standard Babylonian el, cast in stone on one of the statues of King Gudi, was 19.49 in, and the larger Egyptian el was between 20.67 and 20.79 in. The books of Samuel portray the temple as having a Phoenician architect, and in Phoenicia it was the Babylonian el which was used to measure the size of parts of ships. Thus scholars are uncertain whether the standard biblical el would have been 19.49 or 20.67 in, but are fairly certain that it was one of these two figures. From these figures for the size of a biblical el, that of the basic unit, the finger breadth, can be calculated to be either 0.83 or 0.87 in. Rav Chaim Noeh approximates at either 0.79 mm, or according to Talmudist scholar Chazon Ish, 0.94 mm. The mile is thus about 3,248 or 3,445 meters, approximately 5/8 or 2/3 of a mile, and significantly shorter than the modern statute or land mile of 5,280 feet or 1,760 yards. The precise width of the ETZBA has been a subject of controversy among halakhic authorities. The best known is that of the Rav Chaim Noeh and Chazon Ish. See also Rabbi Chaim P. Benish's Midos V'Shi'urei Torah, where he brings an alternative view in understanding the Rambam and therefore suggests that the ETSBA, according to the Rambam, is 0.748 minus 0.756 in. This would affect the other measurements in the following ways. Tefa 2.99 minus 3.02 in, 0 at 8.98 minus 9.07 in, Amma 17.95 minus 18.14 in. Alternatively, according to some early authorities, a zerat is 2 tefahim instead of 3. Talmudic additions to the somewhat simple system of distance. The Talmud adds a few more units, namely the double palm, the pace, the cord, the stadium, the day's journey, and an undetermined quantity named the Gar Meter. The stadium appears to have been adopted from Persia, while the double palm seems to have been derived from the Greek dikas. The relationship between 4 of these additional units and the earlier system is as follows. 1 double palm equals 2 palms. 1 pace equals 1 L. 1 stadium equals 1600 palms. 1 day's journey equals 10 parasangs. The other 2 additional units are more ambiguous. The Gar Meter is mentioned repeatedly but without its size being indicated. It is even sometimes treated as an area, and as a volume. The cord is given 2 different definitions. In the Mishnah it is 50 Ls, but in the Gemara it is only 4 Ls. Area. The Israelite system of measuring area was fairly informal. The biblical text merely measures areas by describing how much land could be sown with a certain volume measure of seed. For example, the amount of land able to be sown with 2 seahs of barley. The closest thing to a formal area unit was the yoke, which referred to the amount of land that a pair of yoked oxen could plow in a single day. In Mesopotamia, the standard estimate for this was 6,480 square cubits, which is roughly equal to a third of an acre. Sira, hair, square 1/36 of a gerus, adusha, lentils, 1/9 of a gerus, geris, split bean, a circle with a diameter of about 0.8 in, amma al-amma, square cubit 357 in 2 to 514 square centimeters, bait rover, space for sowing 1/4 of a cav 258 feet 2 to 372 square meters, bait seah, space for sowing a seah 689 yards 2 to 992 yards 2, bait core, space for sowing a core 4.27 to 6.15 acres volume and capacity. The Israelite system of powder, liquid volume measurements corresponds exactly with the Babylonian system. Unlike the Egyptian system, which has units for multiples of 1, 10, 20, 40, 80, and 160 of the base unit, the Babylonian system is founded on multiples of 6 and 10, namely units of 1, 12, 24, 60, 72,120, and 720. The basic unit was the mina, which was defined as 1/60th of a maris, which itself was the quantity of water equal in weight to a light royal talent. The maris was thus equal to about 30.3 liters. And hence the mina is equal to about 0.505 liters. In the Israelite system, the term log is used in place of the Babylonian mina, but the measurement is otherwise the same. Although they both use the log as the basic unit, the Israelites differentiated their systems of volume measure between dry and liquid states. Dry measure for dry measurements, the smallest unit was the egg, then came the log, cav, seah, ephah, letek, and core. The letek is mentioned only once in the Masoretic text, and the Septuagint translates it by the Greek term nebeloi, meaning wineskin. These measurements were related as follows. 6 eggs equals 1 log, 4 log equals 1 cav, 6 cav equals 1 seah. 3 seah equals 1 ephah, 5 ephah equals 1 letek, 2 letek equals 1 core. The smaller unit, the kezet, is, by different sources, considered equal to 1/2 a bezer, 1/3 of a bezer, or not directly related to the other units of volume. The omer, which the Torah mentions as being equal to 1/10 of an ephah, is an awkward fit into this system, and it is evident that it wasn't originally present, but is instead a result of decimalization, perhaps under the influence of Egypt or Assyria, which both had decimal systems. In the Torah, it is the priestly code which refers to the omer, rather than to the seah or kav. Textual scholars view the priestly code as one of the later sources of the Torah, dating from a period when Egypt and Assyria had much more direct influence over Israel. However, the omer is mentioned as 1/10 of an ephah in Exodus chapter 16 verse 36, before the priestly code. According to Ezekiel chapter 45 verse 11, both the ephah and the bath were 1/10 in omer. Bode notes the word homer comes from the Hebrew for an as. It is 1 as load. Use of the omer to collect manna is explained by Egyptian influence. Liquid measure. For liquid measure, the main units were the log, hin, and bath, related as follows. 1 hin equals 12 logs. 1 bath equals 6 hin. The bath, equal to 72 logs, is thus the liquid equivalent of the ephah, also equal to 72 logs. The liquid equivalent of the omer, which appears without a special name, only being described as the 10th part of a bath, is as much of an awkward fit as the omer itself, and is only mentioned by Ezekiel and the priestly code. Scholars attribute the same explanation to it as with the omer, that it arose as a result of decimalization. The omer is mentioned as 1/10 of an ephah in Exodus chapter 16 verse 36, before the priestly code. According to Herbert G. May, chief editor of 2 classic Bible-related reference books, the bath may be archaeologically determined to have been about 5.75 gallons from a study of jar remains marked bath and royal bath from Tel Ber Sim. Talmudic editions. In Talmudic times many more measures of capacity were used, mostly of foreign origin, especially from Persia and Greece, which had both held dominance over Judea by the time the Talmud came to be created. The definitions for many of these are disputed. Those that were certain fractions of the cab include, in increasing order of size, ukla, tumen, and kapazar. Those that were larger, in increasing order of size, included the modius, jerawah, garab. Of unidentified size were the ardaba, the kuna, and the omets. The latter two of these were said to equate to a handful. Weight and coins. The Babylonian system, which the Israelites followed, measured weight with units of the talent, mina, shekel, and gyru, related to one another as follows. 1 shekel equals 24 gyru. 1 mina equals 60 shekels. 1 talent equals 60 mina. In the Israelite system, the ratio of the gyru to the shekel was altered, and the talent, mina, and gyru later went by the names kikar, litra, and gera, respectively. Litra is a loanword from Latin, libra, meaning pound. The Israelite system was thus as follows. 1 shekel equals 20 gera. 1 litra equals 60 shekels. 1 kikar equals 60 litra. There were, however, different versions of the talent, kikar in use, a royal and a common version. In addition, each of these forms had a heavy and a light version, with the heavy version being exactly twice the weight of the lighter form. The light royal talent was often represented in the form of a duck, while the heavy royal talent often took the form of a lion. The mina for the heavy royal talent weighed 2.23 pounds, while that for the heavy common talent weighed only 2.17 pounds. Accordingly, the heavy common shekel would be about 0.56 ounces. According to Josephus, it was the heavy common talent, and its mina and shekel, that was the normal measure of weight in Syria and Judea. Josephus also mentions an additional unit, the beker, which was exactly half a shekel. Gradually, the system was reformed, perhaps under the influence of Egypt, so that a mina was worth only 50 shekels rather than 60. To achieve this, the shekel remained the same weight, while the weight of the standard mina was reduced. Moses mandated that the standard coinage would be in single shekels of silver, thus each shekel coin would constitute about 0.51 troy ounces of pure silver. In Judea, the biblical shekel was initially worth about 3 1/3 denarii, but over time the measurement had enlarged so that it would be worth exactly 4 denarii. Pruta, a copper coin, 0.34 troy grains. Isar, a Roman copper coin, 2.732 troy grains. Pundan, a Roman copper coin, 5.4 troy grains. Ma, a silver coin, 10.8 troy grains. In Hebrew it is called a gerah. Dinar, a Roman silver coin, 0.1370 zt. In Hebrew, a silver dinar was called a zuz, to avoid confusion with the gold dinar. Shekel, a Jewish silver coin, 14 grams. Moses instituted it as the standard coinage. From 0.27 to 0.51 troy ounces of pure silver. Selah, a silver coin, 0.550 zt. The tallah, and finally the dollar derive from it. Dinar, a Roman gold coin, 0.2570 zt of gold. Mina, a silver coin, 13.660 zt, equivalent with maner, which is 100 zuzim. Kikar, as a gold weight, equivalent to a talent of gold, 3,000 shekel. Time. Year. The Hebrew calendar is a lunar calendar synchronized with the seasons by intercalation, i.e., a lunisolar calendar. There are thus 12 ordinary months plus an extra month that is added in every few years. Some months vary in length by a day, as well. The months originally had very descriptive names, such as Ziv and Ethanim, with Canaanite origins, but after the Babylonian captivity, the names were changed to the ones used by the Babylonians. With the Babylonian naming, the intercalary month has no special name of its own, and is merely referred to as Adar, the following month being Adar, Adar 2. Week. The Israelite month was clearly broken up into weeks, since the Genesis creation describe a 7-day week. The 7-day cycle is not seen as a cycle in nature and is rather a custom biblically originating from Genesis chapter 1 verse 3-2-3. The modern Hebrew calendar follows a 7-day weekly cycle, which runs concurrently but independently of the monthly and annual cycles. The origin of Hebrew's 7-day week and the Sabbath, as well as the true meaning of the name, is uncertain. The earliest biblical passages which mention it presuppose its previous existence, and analysis of all the references to it in the canon makes it plain that its observance was neither general nor altogether spontaneous in either pre-exilic or post-exilic Israel. It was probably originally connected in some manner with the cult of the moon, as indeed is suggested by the frequent mention of Sabbath and new moon festivals in the same sentence. The names for the days of the week are simply the day number within the week. In Hebrew, these names may be abbreviated using the numerical value of the Hebrew letters, for example, day 1, or Yom Rishon, day in addition to tomorrow, and yesterday. The Israelite vocabulary also contained a distinct word for 2 days ago. Maharatayim is a dual form of Makkah, literally, 2 tomorrows. In the Bible, the day is divided up vaguely, with descriptions such as midnight and half-night. Nevertheless, it is clear that the day was considered to start at dusk. By Talmudist times, the Babylonian system of dividing up the day into hours, parts, and moments had been adopted. The relationship of these units was 1 part equals 76 moments, 1 hour equals 1080 parts. 1 day equals 24 hours. To complicate matters, Halakha states that there is always 12 hours between sunrise and sunset, so these measurements are averages. For example, in the summer, a daytime hour is much longer than a nighttime hour.